Hello Year 9 and welcome to your remote learning for the week beginning the 4th of January through to the 8th of January for history. Miss Doughty and I wanted to take the opportunity that we have with you through the remote learning this week to do something a little bit different, to give you a chance to have a taster of what ancient history GCSE might look like. Now, you were all aware, I hope, that we do offer ancient history as a GCSE at IS Breckland, and it's a little bit different to the regular history that you are used to. There's a lot of source work, there's lots of intrigue and working out the story, there's cannibalism, there's love triangles, there's gay love triangles. There is all sorts of intrigue going on in this course. So this session is just going to give you a little bit of an interesting starting point into what ancient history is. Ancient history is examined by OCR, and there are 2 exams. Now, lots of the GCSEs have 3 exams, including regular history, geography, maths, I believe, has 3 exams. But ancient history just has 2 exams, and each of those exams is just an hour and 45 minutes. The 2 exams are on really different topics. Paper 1 is on ancient Greece and ancient Persia. So this is the formation of Athens, democracy, politics. With regards to Persia, we look at conquests and battles and fighting. Paper 2 is on Rome and its neighbours. So that's where we look at the Roman kings, how Rome came to be founded, the different ways that Rome is governed. And then we also will look at Egypt and Cleopatra, very famous queen. It is a separate GCSE to history. They are not the same thing. You do not opt for history and then get a choice between ancient history and history. You can do both of them. Of course, you could do neither of them, but you can do both of them. So you can do regular history and ancient history if you really, really love history, as Miss Doughty and I do, because they will be in different option blocks. You'll have 4 option blocks. There'll be more information on this nearer the time, don't panic. But you'll have 4 option blocks and you'll get to choose from each of those blocks. And history and ancient history are in different blocks, so you can do both of them if you wish. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, Year 9. It is a hard and challenging GCSE, but it's so rewarding. And every year I get to watch those students that choose ancient history in my class go from struggling, finding it a little bit different because it is very different to regular history, but pushing themselves further than they thought possible. You truly immerse yourself in a study of the past where you get to work out what's happened. So today's taster session is going to help you do that. Now, the first thing I'd like you to do, and we do these a lot in ancient history, is connecting the images or image trains. On the board, there are 6 images. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and have a think. What might be the connection between the images and what might each image represent? Don't worry if you don't know, this is just a guessing game at the moment. So please pause the video now. Okay, well, let's see if you were right. The main connection between these images is ancient Rome. Top left, we have a Roman aqueduct. This is a series of bridges that transport fresh water. Top middle, we have a Roman toilet. Roman toilets are pretty unique, as you can see, as they are communal. You would all share the poo stick to wipe your bottoms. Top right, we have a picture of the Parthenon and some Roman soldiers. Bottom left, we have a map of the Roman Empire and how far it expanded. In the middle at the bottom, we have a very famous Roman called Julius Caesar. And then bottom right, we have the Colosseum. Well done if you got all of those correct. Now, we're going to start our taster lesson by trying to solve a mystery, and that is really the aim of this session. By the end of this session, I would like you to be able to confidently tell me what led to the formation of Rome. We are going to look at 3 real historical sources that can help us to answer that question, but they will only help you if you analyse them in depth. I will tell you that each source was made in or around the Roman era, and it gives you information about the beginnings of Rome. The question is, can you work out what happened? Now for the taster session, you only need to make rough notes of your thoughts, but in real GCSE classes there would be written tasks as well. And I've included pink boxes on these PowerPoint slides to show you the sorts of tasks you may be doing if you opted for GCSE Ancient History. Once you've finished the session, you don't need to email anything. It's a chance to give something new a go, see if you like it, but feel free to email myself, Miss Pitts, if you have any questions whatsoever. So here is our first source. Now the source is the image in the middle, and we have a blue box. Now the blue box on these slides represent the provenance. This is where it tells us a little bit of information that we could do with knowing about the source. So this is called the Capitoline She-Wolf, with the boys Romulus and Remus. Now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause the video here and have a think about, and maybe jot down some thoughts about the 3 questions in the purple box. Start, as we should always start as good historians, with what can we see? What is actually going on in the source? Then look at the provenance. Does that add any layers onto our knowledge? Does that help us to understand? And finally, are there any conclusions we can draw? Is there anything we can now say we believe that we know? You shouldn't spend any more than sort of 5-10 minutes on this. Pause the video now and have a go. Okay, hopefully you've had a little go at that. Now I'm not going to tell you anything about this source at this moment in time. I want you to keep your thoughts together, and at the end of the session I will reveal all. Now in the pink box, at this point you would be given some time to complete a detailed source analysis in your notes, and in class you would write up your conclusions fully. Obviously I've told you you don't need to do that for this session unless of course you want to, but this is the sort of activity we do a lot of in ancient history. Look at something, think about it, discuss it, and then write up our thoughts. So we're going to move on to the next source now. Slightly more complicated, this one. So this is called the Bolsena mirror, which is an Etruscan mirror from Porcena from 340 BC. Now, back in Roman times, mirrors were highly decorated. They would be carved with really important scenes on them, and this is a really famous one. Now this is Etruscan, which means it's not actually from Rome itself, so it shows that this story, this tale that we're building up, has travelled far and wide. What I'd like you to do is the same thing we did with the last slide. Pause the video, have a think about the 3 questions in the purple box. What can you see? Really look closely. What does the provenance suggest? And I've given you a few hints on that one. And can you draw any conclusions at this point? So 5 to 10 minutes, pause the video now, have a go. Okay, hopefully you've had a go at that. And as with before, at this point in a real GCSE lesson, we'd now discuss it, and then we would write up our thoughts in some more detail. Time for our 3rd and final source then. Now, it's not all picture sources. Often we have to look at textual sources as well. This source is more complicated, but this is the sort of level we do look at. So you'll notice the questions on the left have changed slightly. This point, instead of what do you see, I want you to think about what does it say. Read it out loud. Unpick any of the old-fashioned language. See if you can make it make sense. If there's a word you're not sure about, Google it. Find out what it means. Then the provenance. Now the provenance for this bit is at the bottom here. This is your provenance, Livy 1.7. Now I'll give you a bit of a clue there. Livy is a very, very influential writer about Roman era, and he is one of our main ancient sources. And then can you draw any conclusions? So I'm going to read the source to you, then I would like you to pause the video and spend 5 to 10 minutes answering your questions. So Remus is said to have been the first to receive an augury from the flight of 6 vultures. The omen had been already reported when twice that number appeared to Romulus. Thereupon each was saluted king by his own followers, the one party laying claim to the honour from priority, the other from the number of birds. They then engaged in a battle of words and angry taunts leading to bloodshed. Remus was struck down in the affray. The commoner story is that Remus leaped over the new walls in mockery of his brother, whereupon Romulus, in great anger, slew him, and in menacing wise added these words withal: "So perish whoever else shall leap over my walls." Thus Romulus acquired sole power, and the city thus founded was called by its founder's name. Pause the video now, have a go. So that one's a little bit trickier, but again, in class, at this point, we would go through the words that you didn't know. We would talk about the source, we would draw out our conclusions before you would write them up formally. So, there are 3 sources. Do you have some thoughts? Do you have some ideas about the story of how Rome was founded? So, hopefully you've got your thoughts together, but basically, now would be the time I would show you the answer. Sometimes I'd tell it to you, sometimes we'd come to the conclusions together, but on this occasion I have found...
Long ago, in the kingdom of Alba Longa, lived a king named Numitor, who was a very good ruler and had a beautiful daughter named Sylvia. But Numitor's wicked brother, Amulius, overthrew Numitor and took the throne for himself. Amulius feared that his niece would give birth to sons who might try to retake the throne in the future, so he banished Sylvia to the temple of Mars to be a Vestal virgin. But Mars, the god of war, fell in love with her, and together they had twin sons who they named Romulus and Remus. Once word got to Amulius, he furiously ordered the servants to sneak into Mars's temple that night and kill the 2 babies. But when the servants arrived at the temple, they could not bring themselves to harm the twins. Instead, they decided to send them away into the tidal river so that Amulius would not know that they had lived. The river's currents were surprisingly calm, and the babies did not drown. In fact, the cradle they were in drifted onto a bank just at the bottom of Palatine Hill. The next morning, a she-wolf walked down the hill to get a drink at the river. But when she did, she stumbled upon Romulus and Remus. But instead of viciously killing them and eating them like any normal savage beast would, she decided to take them into her own care and watch over them as if they were her own pups. When the boys were older, they were found by a shepherd named Faustulus, who took them from the she-wolf and raised them with his wife. They grew up to be strong young men, and word spread to the town where the former King Numitor had been banished to. He realized that the boys were his grandsons, and decided to have them come to him. When the twins arrived, Numitor explained to them everything that had happened, and told them that they needed to overthrow Amulius and retake the throne for him. That night, Romulus and Remus gathered an army of men, raided the kingdom, and killed their uncle. Once Numitor was back on the throne, his grandsons decided that they wanted to build and start a city of their own. But they couldn't decide where to build it. Romulus wanted to build it on Palatine Hill, where the she-wolf had nursed them. Remus wanted to build it on Aventine Hill. Since they could not agree, the 2 decided to build their own cities. But while they were building, Remus started mocking Romulus for having such low walls, and leapt over them to prove his point. Romulus grew extremely angry, and killed his brother without hesitation, exclaiming, "So perish everyone that shall hereafter leap over my wall!"
So, were you right? That brings us to the end of this session. I hope you found it interesting. I really hope that some of you consider taking ancient history. If you have any questions on this, don't hesitate to email me, and we will meet again next week virtually for your next lesson. Goodbye.